Welcome back, everybody, to today's conversation. Super excited to be joined by XAO DAO, community governance initiative on the XRP Ledger, positioned as the network's first governance DAO aimed at proposals, funding, and community decision-making. Before we dive in, a quick note: this conversation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before making any decisions. A big thank you to the XRPL community. It's awesome to have Santiago back here today. Legend, haven't talked to you in a while, sir, and Fabio as well. I want to give also a shout out to our supporting networks like Hedera, Constellation, Algorand, XDC, and more, who make shows like this possible. I'm just going to hop right in, gentlemen, and not waste anybody's time. I know how busy you guys are. We were just talking about that beforehand, how busy everybody is in this space. But why was XAO DAO created now? What unique gap does it fill in XRPL governance? And what are you aiming to accomplish as the ecosystem's first community DAO?
Yeah, thanks, Solomon. The reason of creating a XAO DAO was purely by community understanding that there was a gap where developers did not have a central point of referral. And on top of that, identified also the venture capitalists, where obviously where the funds can come from. They did not see what kind of projects were available in this facing environment. So I think XAO DAO is actually being created purely to collaborate with the developers and collaborate with everyone else that can enter into the ecosystem to virtually promote this project.
Yeah,
awesome. Go ahead.
I would amend that too to say that whatever it was created for originally can grow and change. For me personally, it was the community didn't have a concentrated voice, and after the whole lawsuit with Ripple and the SEC, I felt like the community displayed how resilient it was and how much of a need there was to provide that community with a very clear voice on the future, right? That we got past the hurdles of having XRP having that uncertainty around its legal status, and now that that's behind us, that same energy can be harnessed to kind of everyone's benefit. So that was my personal when Fabio reached out to me to join, was to harness that energy in the community, that power.
Yeah, I think it is an awesome kind of shift to see. This is like a sidebar, not a question, but I think that more and more community involvement in how these different kind of ecosystem initiatives operate is going to be crucial. I mean, it's a natural step forward towards decentralization anyways. And we're going to be hopping into some of this stuff too. I know some of these questions, it's like you offer this amazing thing, and it's like people always want to ask questions, which rightfully so. So I kind of want to lead in here as well. XAO DAO is listed among the founding members of the new XRPL Foundation. What responsibilities come with that role? How does it align with XAO DAO's mission to make the XRPL more accessible, transparent, inclusive, and innovative?
Yes, that's a loaded question, Sam. But I'm actually a board member of NBC, and I sit obviously on the new foundation. And so XAO DAO represents every single member that is on building or developing on the ledger. So we're the voice of the community. So the foundation is evolving as we speak at the moment, and virtually XAO DAO will be representing that voice in the community.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been there's just like a few major players in the XRP Ledger community. Obviously, Ripple's been a major player and a steward of a lot of the asset and the technology, but there's other big players. There are validators, there are builders who build software products on top, and there's people who maintain the kind of the code base and the repository for the code for the ledger itself. And so all of these parties have a role to play in the health of the network, making sure that it continues to grow and is reliable and stable. So we felt, the community itself, the people who invest their time, energy, money into this network should have a way to express the direction that the network goes in. It could be with regards to amendments, with regards to how it's discussed, who who participates in investments and creating products and so forth on top of it. So this is really trying to coalesce that ability for the community to deliver what they want, right? To have a seat at the table.
Yeah, and I know that you know, I've seen you guys kind of out in the wild, definitely doing a lot of kind of educational, different interviews. I know I saw James Rule do one with you. I know Jenna's been doing a ton of the outreach, and shout out to Ari and Ty for, you know, reaching out to see if we would be interested in doing this interview, which of course we are. Santiago's an OG. Community question. This comes from the community. Will XAO DAO members be able to vote on XRP Ledger amendments via the DAO? How does XAO DAO square up with UNL or DUNL rules, where validators are meant to evaluate proposals independently? I think this is probably one of the bigger ones that I've seen been asked recently.
You mind, Fabio, if I take this one?
Sure.
So I believe very much that the hardware operators, the people who run validators and nodes, should have the right to determine what software they run on their hardware. This is a no incentive network, right? There's no one compensating you or paying for your service. You run a validator because you have a vested interest in making forward progress on the network, and you want to see that network be there and reliable for whatever endeavor you have. So I don't think it's appropriate for any external party, however long they've been on the ledger, to dictate that this hardware provider do X, Y, and Z. They can certainly, advocate for the things that they want to see and the amendments they want to see passed. But at most, that's kind of where I would draw the line. Now, I do think that anybody who participates in the XRP Ledger in a major way should run infrastructure. And that's something that in the near future, I hope XAO DAO will be making a very exciting announcement. And we hope to participate in a much more concrete way than just advocating. So I'll leave it at that, but that's kind of my view. And of course, Fabio may have his own.
We'll keep everything under the hat for the time being.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so this was one that was directly flagged to me, and I'll figure out how to. Let me ask this in, I guess, a very normal way. It's kind of what I alluded to earlier, where it's like, okay, here's this initiative for the community, and of course, you're going to get feedback from the community. So, the membership fee within XAO DAO, can you explain what is it like a member NFT? How does that work? And what does that membership fee potentially unlock? What are some of the, I guess, without getting into too much of the weeds, like tangible benefits? Because I know you guys are probably at a position right now where you know kind of a base layer of stuff, but it's like, okay, we don't want to just like talk about a year from now. But yeah, Santiago or Fabio, either one of you guys want to take that one, that'd be great.
I can start with that. I'm pretty sure Santiago will add to it. So there's two folds. One, obviously, based on the incorporation of the DAO in Wyoming, the LLC, there has to be a fee paid, okay, to be a member. And so that's by law. The fact that we implemented also a fee is once to restrict bots coming in and become members free of charge, and virtually then obviously advocating and vote. And obviously when it comes to voting, obviously they will take over the system. So the $10 will allow a member, obviously, to become a member of the XAO DAO, and then that will allow them to vote on proposals. And I know Santiago will go into a bit more details as to the way of voting, but the voting structure that we've created is the most fairness and the fairest available at the moment. So no one can virtually have access voting power, and it's capped, and that will provide a probably level field, a play level field for everybody in the community.
So essentially, it's the way that the I mean, at the base layer, it's just kind of the way that the LLC is structured in and of itself. For membership, you obviously have to buy into membership of an LLC. I guess, Santiago, how is the member, or how is the LLC, and this isn't even one of my questions, but how is the LLC kind of managed? What's the management structure of the LLC?
Yeah, I'll answer that, I promise. To amend what Fabio is saying, what do you get? Like the original question was, what do you get, right, for the fee? You get membership, which is a sense of property, okay, and legal assurances. If you look in the blockchain space, there are almost no assurances unless you have a native asset of a network. Let's say you have XRP or Bitcoin, some native asset. You really have no assurances. Even stable coins have counterparty risk, and you don't know if they're redeemable. So a lot of the things that are offered in crypto to date have no real assurances. And what we wanted to do is say, okay, we have something that gives you real world legal assurances. So these are the kind of ownership in a legal entity, a LLC, a limited liability corporation, that as a member, you have this whole body of law that precedes you that will give you protections. Estate planning, for example, if you pass away or there's inheritance, this is property that gets inherited by your estate. These are things that in crypto, somebody loses their private keys, gone forever, right? So this is what we try to achieve with this unique DAO, is to provide real world legal assurances on top of, your normal private key blockchain assurances with holding a token in a wallet, for example. And we think that's the right foundation to build really interesting and complicated financial products, investments, opportunities for the members. So really the LLC is the foundation, and then the technology stack on top of that legal foundation is how we're going to make this community, which is global, benefit from digital assets, from blockchain technology, et cetera. So
awesome. I guess kind of in that vein too, you mentioned there's obviously going to be proposals and things like that running through XAO DAO. How will that proposal pipeline and grant frequency work? What types of projects do you think will be prioritized? How do you keep the process fair and transparent? I think that's kind of the whole goal with filling that gap, is we don't often in crypto and blockchain see the transparency end of things. We talk about transparency and level playing field and stuff, but some of these decisions seem arbitrary. I mean, you guys are in a unique position to disrupt that power status quo a little bit. So yeah.
Well, that's a good thing, is, we're fully decentralized, but fully transparent as well. So we don't veto any sort of proposals. The community eventually will do that. The community will vote on what proposals they will feel comfortable to vote for it and against it. So you can have an education proposal. You can have a proposal which you have got an app that you want to create, a game, and whatever may be the case. But then it's up to the community to vote on that, and that's virtually where our task sort of stops there. That's where the community eventually dictates everything that's going to go through the system. When it comes through the voting, obviously, if let's say a proposal gets voted, then obviously it goes through the process of the grant, and the XAO DAO, obviously through the treasury, will endeavor to fund all those funds. To fund those projects.
Yeah, and I guess it's like, if you look at decentralization versus centralization, there are trade-offs. It's not that one is perfect and one is better than the other. With decentralization comes a lot of personal power, but a lot of responsibility, right? It's like the Spider-Man thing. But if you want a proposal to be pushed forward and funded by the XAO DAO treasury, you really have to advocate it, right? You have to engage with the community, communicate on the venues where the community may reside. Could be on X, could be on Discord, Telegram, wherever. But it's your responsibility to achieve consensus among your member peers to vote in the affirmative on a proposal so it doesn't die on the vine. If you don't advocate and push for something that you think is important, it won't reach a consensus, a sufficient threshold, 51%, and it won't get passed, and it will just expire. So part of the question was the kind of frequency of proposals. We've decided for now to make it simple, that only one proposal in a calendar day can be put forth and voted on. Now, you can schedule your proposal, say, a month in advance, and say, I want my proposal to go for a vote next month on this date. And once you kind of reserve that slot, the way our application works, no one else can reserve that day for voting. And you can define that period of how much time you want to allow to deliberate, to advocate in the community and build that consensus. It can take a lot of time and effort. So we wanted to give users enough time to specify and advocate for their proposal. And then when that voting window opens, the community can vote according to their voting power. And we'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. And then during that period of voting, you don't know the outcome. There's a lot of other networks where we've seen voting strategies where you kind of see that the vote is going to go one way no matter what. And it can tend to dissuade you from even participating because you already know the outcome. In the way we structured it, it's private until the vote is closed. And then all the results are recorded on chain on the XRPL EVM sidechain, and it's 100% transparent. So anybody can audit the vote. You can audit your own vote to make sure that it was recorded the way you actually wanted. And so that's the kind of governance transparency we're shooting for. But we wanted to make sure that during the voting period, it was kept private so that you vote the way you think it should, not the way kind of the tide is going.
I guess one question, this is like a sidebar for me. I don't have this baked into the ones that I kind of wrote up. I think one of the issues that we've seen in crypto is inactive governance, I guess, in a way where like you have people, everybody has an opinion, but not everybody wants to kind of put their actions where their opinion is and, you know, participate in certain different things. So I guess the question that I really have is, does the way that XAO DAO is set up, or are there plans for flexibility where the DAO always acts in the best interest of itself? And I'm not saying you guys, I'm saying literally the DAO, because the DAO is its own entity in this situation, because it is. Does the DAO have the ability to act in its own best interest to make sure that, you know, people that are wanting to participate, let me rephrase it, that people are actually kind of participating? You get where I'm going with this? Because like you could almost have ghost members of the DAO that are like adding no value, and then it's just all over the place.
Yeah. Let me give it a shot, Fabio, then you can see if because, you know, this is a complicated problem. I think what you're talking about is voter apathy, where people don't engage for whatever reason. They're just not motivated, or maybe they're busy. There's a lot of reasons why someone might not vote. And the problem you're envisioning is, well, whoever's advocating for this proposal can't generate enough votes to get it to pass, right? And so things just keep dying on the vine. That's a problem to solve in the longer term. We think that the people who will join early, they're excited and they want to participate and so forth. One of the ways I see solving that problem is a set of incentives. So if people vote, they get something for it. I don't know what that is. Could be social signaling like NFT. You know, you get some kind of voter badge that you vote a lot often and reliably. The other way to do it is to implement liquid democracy, where I'm a busy guy. I trust Fabio to vote on my behalf. And on Ledger, I can essentially sign a transaction that says, for the next 10 votes, Fabio votes for me. And I delegate my voting power to him or her, whomever. And in that way, I have confidence that my voice is going to be expressed, even though I may not directly vote. And then if at any time I want to kind of pull my voting power back, I can have the right to do that. And then I can engage in voting directly. And so that way, people who are natural leaders in the community can represent others if they want. And it's kind of like being elected in a sense. But then they have the burden of handling those people's votes responsibly. And if they don't, they get their vote pulled away. So that's just a simple technological solution. And it could go a long way, I think, to addressing, you know, inevitable voter apathy. But at the end of the day, you know, at the end of the day, people want to vote because they want to see the DAO successful. Because it's
I would imagine at the beginning, you probably have people that just want to participate. It's similar to like when we saw like Flare spin up, for example, and a lot of people complained, and then some people actually participated, and the people that are participating now are like, oh, I'm glad I participated in this for a year and a half while everybody else was complaining about it. So I think that's kind of what you're going to get at the beginning, is hopefully that motivated crowd that really has been waiting for something like this on the XRPL, sees the kind of the vision and then you kind of grow that community advocacy naturally over time. Let me move forward, and I think this one was flagged by Jenna. Some in the community have expressed concerns that XAO DAO feels centralized. It seems to me that we've been talking about decentralization during this whole interview, but I guess this is a concern with the community. How do you address perception, such as like centralization versus decentralization? And I know, Santiago, you kind of led in a little bit there a couple minutes ago. What structures within XAO DAO do you think are going to help to continue furthering decentralizing it while maintaining accountability kind of for the long haul here?
Well, at the moment, the XAO DAO is virtually controlled, or not controlled, but established by myself and Santiago. We are looking, obviously, at increasing that sort of foothold with community members. So let the community obviously come and join the XAO DAO. And obviously, as much as we wanted to say we are definitely fully decentralized, because it's the community that actually dictates how the XAO DAO is going to progress from here onwards. So, proposal will come through. And one thing that I think we probably haven't touched base yet, but might as well, is that the community members of the XAO DAO have got the right also of gaining some profits at the end of each financial year, provided that the XAO DAO has made some profits. And they've got the say as to where those profits are going to be allocated. So while the XAO DAO will retain some of those funds for the normal expenses, running costs, and so forth, the remainder eventually will be up to the community members to decide, oh yeah, we should invest these funds, or we should distribute these funds to the members. So that's, I haven't seen anyone like that, no sort of other DAOs be able to do that, or for that matter, any companies.
Yeah, and a good analogy in the historical sense are how large corporations work, where their shareholders vote on proposals. They may even vote to sell the company. They could vote to replace the management team. One of the things that every member will receive when they become a member is a copy of the operating agreement that we created to manage the DAO. And in that operating agreement are all the rules. For example, how Fabio and I are managers, and we have to take care of paying bills and managing overhead, and how proposals are put forth, how voting is constructed, and how many votes you get, and then how profits and losses are distributed to the individual members. So all that's codified in the operating agreement. And so that's subject to change. If the membership says, hey, we want to radically change the operating agreement, someone puts a proposal forth. If it reaches majority vote, then the operating agreement gets revised. So it's just like you could have proxy votes like you do in a corporation, where shareholders delegate their votes to a Fidelity or a large company, and they vote on their behalf. So very, very similar structure. Yep.
I think we covered this a little bit, but I'll frame it maybe in a different way. But any role in upcoming XRPL amendments or permission dexes / domains? I think I want to kind of take this in the focus of ecosystem grants governance. So like, where do you see XAO DAO kind of playing in things like ecosystem grants, for example? Because I think that's probably a big one, because I think, and this is like every network, as good of a job as all these kind of monstrous entities have done, for lack of a better phrasing, at like making sure the networks survive and grow and all this other stuff, we've also not really gotten maybe the transparency on how some of these selections have occurred with funding of projects and things like that. And I think, again, you guys are in an interesting opportunity to help maybe navigate that. But whichever you guys wants to take that, focus on ecosystem grants. We tackled governance, so ecosystem grants, things like that.
Want to give it a shot, Fabio?
Yeah. So I guess being seated on the board of the foundation, that's a good opportunity for the community members to put a proposal through. And eventually, once the proposal gets approved, then obviously it will be up to myself to bring it to the board and eventually ask whoever's in control, in this case at the moment, the foundations, to eventually approve the amendments and go forward. I guess the community is the voice of of these ecosystems. So if whilst we don't control them at that point, we don't control the UNL as such, or don't control any amendments that we can go through, we can virtually say, well, the community is virtually voicing this out. They're the ones calling the shots at the moment. So, if it makes sense to do it, I don't see why that should not happen.
I think it's been one of like the general pain points of like Web3, where like, yeah, it started with this like cypherpunk like ethos, like, and then over time it seems to have become much more kind of I would say like enterprise Fortune 500 driven, which in a sense is a good thing, obviously, for adoption. But I see a struggle from some of these entities to kind of figure out, boots on the ground, like where's the momentum coming from the retail sector. And I think that that's kind of the opportunity that you guys might have here, is to be like, hey, there's a voice for this emerging thing that is happening, and we should pay attention to this, or we should incubate this, or we should do whatever, especially from like these foundation calls. Can
I add to that? Because I think we need to just make a very clear distinction between amendments that get applied to validator infrastructure. As I mentioned before, whoever runs that validator is going to pick amendments. These are functional changes to the code base of the ledger that introduces a new feature or protective function, versus proposals that the XAO puts forth to invest in the ecosystem. That might be take some of the treasury funds, give a grant, or make an investment in a developer or a project so that it grows. Now, I would classify that into direct investments and indirect investments. And direct investments is something where the XAO might actually take ownership, a part ownership. You use the word incubator, but part ownership in a company or a project, so that as it grows and prospers, the XAO benefits from it. Whereas indirect investment might be where you're just going to invest in this project through a grant with no ownership in it, but because you think it's going to be healthy for the whole network, right? That the network's going to benefit from whatever it is that these people are doing. Both I think should be on the table, in my view, and I think over the long term, there's really two metrics that increase the value of your digital asset. I'm an XRP holder. I want to see my XRP increase in value. So two major metrics have been shown to increase the value. First is the number of wallets that get created on a network. You can trace that very clearly, and it correlates with token value. So we want more wallets, which means we want more people participating. That's obvious. And then secondly, the amount of development that goes on a network. How many coders and builders are building new products, goods, and services? That directly can increase the value of the underlying asset. So if we focus on that as a DAO, investing in our community, getting more wallets created, getting more projects built, we're all going to benefit. And that's why XRP is kind of the center of the DAO. We don't use a governance token. We don't have a separate token, a XAO token. XRP is our token, and we want to see it grow in value. So.
Awesome. I would love if you guys could tackle, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think in prior interviews, KYC, which makes sense because to become a member of an LLC, you probably have the KYC anyways. But KYC will be required for payouts. What do you guys foresee the process for KYC being, or just kind of in general, like what does that entail? I mean, as broad or as in depth you want to get it, really, however you want to tackle it.
Well, the only time, I think you mentioned, the only time we would use or we would require a form of KYC will be when we have to pay out profits to the community members. And that's not because it's our requirement, it's virtual law requirement. So I'm based in Australia. So the Australian Taxation Office obviously will require an income statement, and it will require for the DAO obviously to provide such income statement, but obviously has to be named to the beneficiary. So in that case, in America, I think you've got a K1 form that you need to fill in. Obviously, you need to basically nominate the beneficiary of that. So that's the only time that the KY will be implemented. Santiago will probably explain a bit more where then all the private information obviously will be held, because obviously, it is private, and the DAO obviously doesn't want to release that information to the public.
Sure.
But that's the only time that the KYC will be implemented at this stage.
Yeah, and to make it like 100% clear, to participate in the DAO, you don't need to do KYC, meaning to put a proposal, to become a member, to vote. All of that is, it comes with the same pseudo anonymity that you have with being an XRP holder, having a wallet. So if people choose, they can participate in the DAO without anyone ever knowing who they are. And we want it that way. The only time we would ask for personally identifiable information is if they want a payout, if they're profits at the end of the year and they want to be a beneficiary of the value that is accrued to the DAO, then they would have to disclose certain pieces of information. We use the word KYC, but it's not strictly KYC. KYC is typically reserved for like payment providers or certain banking and financial transactions. This is really a payment. So this is more like if you're getting a payment from eBay, right? eBay doesn't do KYC on you if you're a vendor, but they do ask for certain pieces of information so they can give you a proper form at the end of the year for income, and then you have to report it to your tax regulator, et cetera. So that's the kind of PII we're talking about, and it will depend on the jurisdiction how much. Now, how that's actually done, there are already wallet providers who offer types of KYC through services like Verif and others, and we want to work with the people who build on the ledger as it is right now to integrate that directly in the wallets. And the reason we would do it that way is that means that the DAO may not have to hold any PII at all. We just get an interface to a wallet that allows us to send a form, for example, in the mail or through email that you can give to your tax regulator. So that problem hasn't been solved yet, but there are solutions out there where we can where users can provide their information properly and then not have to worry about being disclosed to the whole world. And at no time ever will we store anything on chain. So that's just going to be, let's just put that on the table right now. At least as far as I'm participating in the DAO, we will never store any PII.
Awesome. All right, 2 last questions for you guys here, and these are more forward-looking statements. So looking forward 12 to, let's say, a year to 2 years, what is XAO DAO's roadmap? Where do you see governance evolving with community participation on the XRP Ledger? And how do you envision XAO DAO and its members growing influence on the XRPL over time?
You take that one, Santiago. First one.
Okay, no problem. Well, Fabio had this brilliant idea a few months back called the XAO Hub. And the XAO Hub kind of tries to tackle directly one of the main problems in any network, which is connecting people and connecting people so that they can help each other. And this includes, if I have a new business idea, I want to build something on the ledger, I don't know who the devs are. I don't know who is the right person to help me market it. I don't know where I can find venture capital. All the things that you need for your project to be successful, you're kind of on your own if you're starting from scratch. And so Fabio had the idea, let's have this XAO Hub, which is a matching engine, which people can, and this will be available to any ecosystem, not just XRP Ledger. The XAO Hub will be a place where devs, marketers, educators, investors can come, match with each other, and transact and do business. This is a huge global community. They have so many skills, so much to offer. The best we could do is match them, and then the XAO benefits from that matching. We charge a fee for that matching. It's kind of like a dating app, but we charge a fee, and so we grow our revenue while the community has a venue where they can connect and build. So
sounds like if you could even probably potentially leverage for that hub, like agentic AI in a way where if you have a member join and they kind of give the baseline of information, whether that information is I'm interested in something, or maybe they've already built something, or maybe they've already put a proposal forward on something, then it becomes much easier to filter when another member comes in and says, enters in the same criteria. Number one, it eliminates redundancy because you don't have potentially somebody putting in a duplicate proposal for something because they know it already exists. But yeah, I think that we're going to see kind of the convergence of this stuff. Fabio, I didn't mean to interrupt your opportunity to answer though, but yeah.
Yeah, just to follow on with what Santiago was saying, the XAO Hub eventually an additional income stream, and all those funds actually will filter back to the XAO DAO. So again, the community members will benefit from that. The other thing is both the XAO DAO and eventually the XAO Hub will be multilingual, which means that we want to approach, the Asian market specifically. We'll be acting quite, strongly there. That will be my little baby. It's something that obviously it's important to make sure that, given the XAO DAO, it's a worldwide app available to everybody. We want to make sure that we don't sort of corner ourselves in just because it's in just one language. So the web page or the landing page of the XAO DAO will be in about 4 different languages: Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, obviously English, and I think there's another language just escapes me. But we want, as I said, we want to be inclusive, and I think that's a good way to do it.
I like your idea too, Solomon, like where you could use AI to do a lot of the matching. Like really, I like where somebody puts an idea forth and puts a description that, hey, I want to build this project, and it would help you find matches. Like it would give you a recommendation of, hey, these are the pieces of the puzzle you need to make this thing work. That's a really great idea. That's the kind of stuff we're looking forward to, is ideas like that.
So my last question for you guys is, and I think that this is kind of in vein with some of the other topics we talked about earlier. Beyond governance, how do you plan to integrate or support XRPL builders? So I guess present and future builders, wallets, DeFi protocols, things like that. Really kind of what I'm asking, I think one of the big pain points that we've seen is like, you have builders that are building on the every network, on every crypto network, but XRPL as well, that have been trying to build stuff forever and it just seem like they can't get their voice heard. Where do you kind of think you guys kind of aid into supporting builders on the XRPL in kind of that regard?
Well, I guess we are representing them, as I mentioned, on what we're representing the community. So it will be up to XAO DAO to make sure that wherever we are on X or on different platforms, at events, conferences as well, we do promote. I mean, we need to promote everybody, not just the ones that are sort of stale or stable or can't get through the vines. But I guess, it is a minefield out there. It's going to be hard. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. Not everybody's going to sort of see us as the gods of the ecosystem. But it is, again, it will be part of our structure to make sure that the promotion is always there for everybody.
I think it would probably behoove some of these projects to look into XAO DAO. I mean, for a $10 for me, if I was a project or a developer on the XRPL and I built something and I was running something, this is, again, not financial advice to anybody watching this. $10 seems like a pretty low hanging fruit to be able to get my voice heard. So Santiago, I'll let you kind of ramp us down here, and thank both you gentlemen for joining today.
So let's break it down to just quick few little pieces, right? So there will be funds that are in the XAO DAO treasury that will be available for projects, like I said, through indirect investment. So if a developer is looking for funds, one place they might come to is the XAO DAO. But the other piece that I think people underestimate is the XAO DAO voice. Now, like any voice, if you're a child and you're learning to speak and you want to communicate, you have to start very basic, and then you get very sophisticated as time goes on. So I see our community voice in a similar fashion, where at first we don't understand the power of our voice, but as we start getting used to focusing it, that voice is going to have a seat at very important tables. It's going to have a seat at the XRP Ledger Foundation table, where they have funds that they may allocate. And so here's the XAO DAO saying, hey, look, the community wants this. Why aren't you investing in this? And that's a very powerful thing. It could be a voice with Ripple. It could be a voice with any other large participant on the XRP Ledger and on other networks. The XAO DAO is going to be a DAO for the community, but it's centered around XRP. But we plan to expand to other networks because we're all part of other communities. And there's no reason that we can't solve these problems for other communities in the same way we're solving it for the XRPL community. You know, the same problem of matching developers and marketers and venture capitalists, that exists everywhere. And so we want to open it up to helping solve these problems and then build this internet of value, and we can interoperate. So there's so much opportunity here. We just have to learn how to use our voice properly.
Awesome. Well, I definitely wanted to mention for those watching to make sure you give XAO DAO a follow if you're interested in learning more about XAO DAO. It's at XAO DAO LLC, or you can go to XAODAO.io, join the wait list. Santiago and Fabio, thank you guys so much. Thank you to XAO DAO for joining today, bringing clarity, more clarity to governance, grants, membership. Governance, obviously a critical, active governance is obviously a critical piece to any blockchain ecosystem. And it's exciting to see a DAO take shape on the XRP Ledger to drive transparency and inclusivity. For everybody watching, as I mentioned, check out XAO DAO online. And finally, thank you not only to the XRPL community, but also Genfinity's supporting networks, Hedera, Constellation, Algorand, XTC, and more, who make our work and interviews like this possible across as many ecosystems as we can reach. Thank you guys both. Hang out with me for a second as I make sure I get this recording.
All right.